Welcome back to Kev's Vintage Tractor Repair channel. This episode is going to be an introduction into getting ready to rebuild the Ferguson 23C engine. I had the cylinder head done, the crank has been polished, and we're just going to look and see what's inside the box, ready for when we start the actual proper rebuild. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome back to Kev's Vintage Tractor Repair channel. We're now on a continuation of the Ferguson FE35 engine rebuild. And as you can see, I've had a delivery from Emmark of the engine kit and a few other bits and pieces. So in this episode, what we're going to be talking about is what's in the engine kit, some bits I've ordered, quick chat about the crankshaft, because that's now come back after being reground and polished. And also I've had the cylinder head back as well. Okay, so as you remember, we took the cylinder off quite a while ago on the FE35 23C engine. I've sent it away to have new valves reground into it. So we've had new springs, the inner and outer, new little collets and new valves as well. And it's all been pressure tested as well. So we turn it on this side. So if we can remember from the previous episodes, all right, this was quite corroded on number 3. So he's given it a quick skim, okay, and if you remember, this was quite pitted in number 3 cylinder. Yes, it is still pitted, but it's sealing, nothing goes too deep, and it's absolutely fine now. So it's all sort of ready to go. I just need to give it another clean. It's all been sort of machined and things like that, but just because it comes back and it looks clean doesn't mean to say it is clean, all right, because it's had quite a bit of work done onto it. So I will give this another wash and go through. Also, what I'm going to plan on doing is on the back here, this is obviously the back of the engine where the battery is, there's 2 core plugs. And I think for all the work we're now doing, for the sake of whatever they cost, we're just going to knock those out and put two new ones in. All right, then we know everything's done. They're going to be sealed, because what we don't want to do is put all our engine together, put it back in the tractor, start it up, water pressure builds up, and it blows the core plugs out. And all of a sudden, we've now got to take the head off and bits and pieces just to replace these little pieces on there. That's our cylinder head. The valves and bits and pieces all came from Emmark. And what I'm going to do at the end of the episode, I'm going to put a list up of all the bits and pieces that I've used or got from them, which are used in the rebuild. Also, which I've now got back, is our crankshaft, all right, which I gave it to the engine centre. They've measured and polished this, and normally when you get them back, you'll get a little tag like this, and that'll have what your mains have been ground to, 10 under, and then the big ends, which are 20. All right, and I think with this engine you can go up to 40 if they've been reground. Here are conrod shells. All right, when you get them, all right, obviously you've got your measurement. All right, yours will be different. Okay, you might have just had these polished, and we can put standards back in. It just depends on how much hard your engine has had. It's our big end bearings. All right, so that's in there, and they're 10s. I'm not going to get them out at the moment because I want to keep them sealed, because I don't want to damage them. So that's those ones. And in the other box are main bearings as well. Okay, so when we get to that part, okay, fitting these, we're going to talk about fitting them, putting some oil in, and making sure everything's clean and there's no bits of rubbish. Now, talking of bits of rubbish, here's the crankshaft. It's all been polished. There's a lot of waxy stuff on it, stop it from sort of flash rusting. Now, we've got these little holes here, okay, which obviously are oil ways to deliver oil to our bearing. When the pump is going through, it's pushing oil around the engine, coming to here and lubricating our bearings. Now, that looks clean, all right, but they're not. This has been put through a machine. They've used a cut and lubricant on here, which possibly, or I think it, or it definitely has, is gone in these little oil ways. So we are going to get through to cleaning as well. Now, if you have a look, if I turn it over, you might see it a bit better. You see these little screws. You see these screws in there. So we've got them there, there, and obviously they're on this side as well. Now, they were there when the crankshaft was drilled across to get oil across the crankshaft. These ones are drilled, there's another hole underneath here, so they're drilled all the way through, but oil has got to get across to here, hence why these little screws are in there. Sometimes you can take them out, all right, and then what you want to do is get in there and blow, because there'll be a lot of rubbish in there. So we'll give it a go, just to show you what I mean. I've blown through there. We can see there's a little bit of dirt on there. Yours might be worse. Also, cleaning this as well. It looks clean. If I give this a quick wipe, that's what we've got on it. And we want to put this engine together as clean as we can. So we've got no foreign matter traveling around, scoring bearings, taking seals out and things like that. But when we get on to fitting the crank and stuff, we'll have a quick chat about cleaning again. But now we're working on this engine, we want to be clean. There's our crankshaft. Protect this end, because this end is where our rear crank seal rides. This is obviously where the rear crank seal is gonna run. Now, obviously you're not going to feel it. You might be able to catch it on the camera, but there is a little ridge or little valley in there. The rear mainsail has got hard, and over time it's actually dug a little valley in there. Here is a rear mainsail. It's going to fit with a little bit of oil. Will go on there and fit a lot better. This is stationary, crank is turning round. What I may do, because we have a little ridge on there, is put a little spacer in there so it just sits in a slightly different place, all right? Because what we don't want is that to sit in the same place and it'll possibly leak, all right? But when we get to these bits, it'll all be stage by stage, different videos doing different things, and we'll talk about why again. Like I say, this is a bit of a show and tell video on everything I've got for the rebuild. So we'll start talking about some of the stuff we've got here in the boxes. Now, got two little packs here. I'm not going to open them up completely. What we have in here is our tappet pushrod guide. All right, obviously this end runs on the camshaft, sort of moving up and down. Now, the ones I've got weren't really that bad on the face. The only problem I had with those is because there were scores in here, because obviously that engine was sandblasted and ran. So there's little scores up and down on here. So for what they are and what they cost, I'm going to change them. All right, we need 8 of them. If we imagine that's our push rod, it sits in there, traveling up and down, open the valves in the cylinder head. Next little bag. I'll get it out. Is our oil pump. Why I've bought a new oil pump is the same thing. We've had sand pass through this engine, and I think we're really lucky that we could save the crankshaft. Now, obviously, there's one part of it, then attached to a sprocket, turns and oil gets drawn in, okay, so it fills one side up. As it turns, the holes get smaller and smaller, and it's obviously pressurized and then forced around the engine. There is a measurement we can do with a pair of feeler gauges, which, same thing again, when I get to fit in the oil pump, I'll do a little information video on that and fitting it as well. Now we have our timing chain, and here it is. There's a 62 link duplex chain. The tractor's over 60 years old. You think how much wear this chain has had, all right? And the original one has stretched over time. Sort of in here, the links have gone loose. We can get new sprockets for down there, so we can tighten it right up. We have got a little breakaway link in there as well. Obviously, take that little, we'll call it C-clip, then you can draw the back of the chain off, all right, so we can then fit it. It's the same thing again, when we go to this stage, okay, we're then moving into the timing stage of the engine. There will be a video on that as well. We've looked at the chain. What comes with the chain is our tensioner. Here's our chain tensioner. Chain runs on this, giving it a little bit of tension through oil supply through the engine. If I just pull it apart, in there, there's a spring, all right? So sometimes what they do, you've got to push the spring in and you give it a twist and it sort of locks it into place. The next part we're going to have a look at is our little fuel lift pump. So here is our little fuel lift pump. This side runs off the camshaft, goes in and out, pumping fuel through to our injection pump. Now, with the Ferguson 23C, you can have two different ones. All right, there's our inlet outlet port. Also, you can have these little lift pumps fitted as well. All right, it's pretty much exactly the same. It's just you've got parallel ports on that. So just sort of make sure you sort of get the right one, otherwise you'll be rerouting your fuel lines. In the little kit, we have our little back end gasket as well. If you look back at some of the previous episodes, what we did in here, these are the lift pumps I do like, because you can take this screw out and inside is a filter, which not many people know about that, but it is something. So if you've got your tractor, you haven't taken it apart, but you've got a bit of a problem on the fuel side, undo that screw, take that out, and there's a little filter in there which you can clean out if a lot of rubbish has passed through as well. But if you look in the previous episodes, you'll see the one that we had on here did have a lot of rubbish inside. These ones, what can happen with these ones, the spring and the diaphragm could get weak over years of use, picks dirt up or gets a split in there. You can buy rebuild kits for these, so you can rebuild them, but they are pretty sort of inexpensive part as well. The two different lift pumps you can get for our 23C engine. We're going to service the tractor, we're going to keep it nice and clean. Here's an oil filter, this is the fuel filter. Over years, things could be changed on the tractor. You could have two. You can have a double one, single one, or someone's put a more modern one on it. You just sort of say, get the right filter that you need for the job. And here is our cartridge style oil filter. And new O-rings as well, so obviously fit it as well. So what we're going to do next is we're going to open the big box. We've gone through all the little bits. Now let's look at the main bits for inside the engine. So here is our engine kit. In here we've got everything we need to rebuild the core of the engine to turn it into a short block. I'll get everything out. I'm only going to open sort of one box of each. I'm not going to get everything out. Here's the bottom end gasket set. All right, we've got a few little bits in there we can identify straight away. There's the sump gasket, timing cover, fuel injection pump gasket. All right, and there's a little oil pump one in there as well. That's it. I'm not going to open it up at the moment. All right, we'll do that when we get to there, because I don't want to damage any of these gaskets in this one. The other one, here is our top gasket set. So you can see the copper coloured one in there, that's our head gasket. We've got our rocker cover gasket in there and a few other sort of thermostat gaskets and bits and pieces like that inside. We've already talked about this one. All right, this is our rear crank seal, which I got one off the shelf just to show you that one fits. We've got that in there. Front crank seal should be somewhere, we'll find it in a moment. 4 big boxes. And here is our cylinder liner, all right, which came out. We took those out originally in the block, all right, so we're going to fit new ones. Check them over, just make sure there's no cracks or big scores in them or anything like that. These have got nice crisscross pattern inside. You're not really going to see that on the camera, but that's pretty much our cylinder liner, and we're going to have 4 of those. So here we have our little end of our conrod, sorry. Okay, the gudgeon pin, wrist pin, depending on what you want to call it. That's there. I'm not going to get that out because it's covered in oil. New circlips. I'm not going to get covered in oil. Here we have our piston. All right, this is a 5-ring piston. All right, obviously pin fits through there, and obviously the little circlips go either side. Same thing again. Get it out, give it a check, make sure there's a couple of little scratches on the top, but they're not going to hurt. We don't want anything down these sides. Okay, there's our piston. Now this one we have our piston rings. Now this 5-ring piston, obviously we've got 5 slots in there for our piston rings. When we start fitting the piston rings, in the workshop manual, I don't think we can see it very well, but I've fitted a piston ring in there and there's a little gap in there. So when we fit them, there is a measurement for that. So we might have to just slightly file the edge of that piston ring to get the correct gap in there for when it's fitted inside our rings, our ring grooves in the piston. All right, but same thing again, I'm going to run through all that when we come to fitting all these up at that stage. Some of you, when you rebuild an engine, you may just want to sort of hone out the inside, clean it up, and you might want to just fit piston rings to your original pistons, which is fine. That works, you can do that. So what I'm going to do as well, I'll find an old piston, quite a mucky, dirty one, and what we'll do, we'll give it a clean in a video, and we'll clean out, I'll show you the tool we use to clean out all the little grooves in the piston in there. So we'll do sort of both, fitting a new one up, and we'll fit an older piston up as well, so you can actually sort of see what we're doing in both, so you can sort of do either or, whatever suits you in your rebuild of our engine. That is pretty much the end of the video. I've still got a little bit of cleaning to do on the block, so I can get that ready for when we want to start rebuilding it, and I'm going to clean a few bits and pieces and have a few videos on making sure everything's all clean. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little episode of sort of getting to know some of the new parts that we're going to be fitted into our Ferguson 23C engine. If you've got any questions or comments, I'll do my very best to sort of answer them as soon as I can, but I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.